There's two key patterns in the Born Method. One is how we show up, and the other pattern explains how we see ourselves.
Okay.
And sometimes they're different, but always they come together and people see the part of us that we present. They focus on what they're capable of doing versus what they're wired to do. And they measure success based on that. Timing is everything, and it's less about knowing exactly what to do when, and it's more about almost reading our intuition. We are our best when we compare ourselves to ourselves and our best selves, not to other people's journeys, other people's timing and what they do or how they communicate, because we're each very complex human beings and we have our own strengths and needs and expectations. So I've seen the best work happen in my clients, in their companies, in myself, when we turn inwards and think, okay, how am I going to do this in the best way possible?
Welcome to Cake for Dinner. This is not your everyday mom podcast. We laugh, we curse, we tell the truth, and we're here to ditch the perfection culture. Today's guest is Ipek Gray, an economist turned whole life coach and the founder of the Born Method. She works with women and families to create alignment across work, motherhood, and life because, as she says, your life isn't fragmented. It all moves together. So Ipek Gray, welcome to Cake for Dinner.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, super excited. So your mom, Dr. Sybil Arda, created the foundation for the Born Method. What was it like growing up around that, first of all? And when did you know that you wanted to carry the legacy forward?
Yeah, it's, she was creating the Born Method as I was growing up. So it was kind of like speaking a language that no one else did in a way. It was a language of numbers, and she's a single mom. I'm an only child, so we had this special connection. And
was it called the Born Method?
No, so she calls it, the direct translation is the mathematical system of life.
Okay.
I didn't want to scare people away. In the States, I felt like math can get a sort of scary connotation. So I really wanted to connect it to this, the root of it, which is it's a method. It's a proven approach to how we can understand ourselves, our relationships, and how we move through time. But growing up with it, it was just this incredible opportunity to develop compassion for myself and the people around me. It's the language of numbers, but it essentially describes our true selves, how we communicate, how we think, our assumptions. And when you can explain the people around you through that lens, it was an incredible, helpful way for me to decode girl friendships when I was 14 and having, arguments with a group of friends, or for my mom to understand me better. I always share the example of there's two key patterns in the Born Method. One is how we show up, and the other pattern explains how we see ourselves.
Okay.
And sometimes they're different, but always they come together and people see the part of us that we present. So, the way I present and the numbers are this maybe potentially shy, kind, soft-spoken person, but the numbers that explain how I see myself is I see myself as a multifaceted person that wants to experiment all parts of life. And my mom knew that. So when I was friends with all kinds of people wanting to do activities that may be outside the norm of this sort of traditional looking girl, or when I wanted to travel and come abroad to study for school, she knew that and she supported instead of questioning and worrying about it.
Because it made sense to her.
Exactly.
So explain to me, like on a very basic level, if possible, what the Born Method is and how does it relate to numbers? You're referencing numbers and math. How does that?
Yeah, so I oftentimes, the elevator pitch kind of quick explanation is think numerology on steroids or psychology explained through numbers.
Okay.
And I give both as an example because this is not just, the birthday wisdom we know of, like astrology, human design, and those can be incredibly powerful too. But this is a way we can explain our zone of genius, our highest talents, our relational abilities with different people through the lens of numbers. And these numbers are created using our birth date. But what my mom developed is this unique proprietary system. So getting your birthday, we create a number code. And each of those numbers, 20 digits, represents a different pattern in your life.
We should have done this before. I wish
I know we
done
could.
my birthday.
Yeah, we could still do. I've gotten so used to it. I can do some of it in my head, but
let's do
we
some.
can. Yeah, sure.
What do I need to provide?
So your day, month, and year.
Okay, so May 22nd, 1974.
So what I can tell you is, and this is because I just did like a 7-part workshop in New York and LA and Miami, focused just on your zone of genius number. And the zone of genius is, we oftentimes think of it as our highest talents in a career setting.
Okay.
But in the Born Method, we actually define it as something that comes easily to you, gives you joy, it's intuitive to you, and it shows up in little parts of your life that you may not even notice. It's not just these big career moments. So for you said May 74.
May 22nd,
1974. Mm-hmm. So your zone of genius is number 8.
And you get that from?
So every category has a different calculation. The way I quickly did this, and there's 3 numbers attached to it, but because I don't have pen and paper, your month and your year.
Okay.
I combine the 2, and that gives us an entry point.
Okay.
Into that number.
Okay.
And 8, just like a very snapshot sense, is you're really good at creating trustworthy structures. That's a very high level umbrella term, but it's the way you approach family, your kids' schooling, your business, your relationships. To you, it's a long-term investment.
Yes.
And it's important for you to give everything you can to create a trustworthy set of relationships. Sometimes it can show up as almost giving a lot of yourself and not letting others help you building that. And oftentimes our zone of genius, there's a fear associated that can hold us back. And there's childhood patterns, wounds, experiences that we can also decode using more of the numbers. But with 8, it's oftentimes in your childhood, typically we see those people going through, whether through the family or someone close to you, you watch them lose, either they lose their trust, or you lose your trust in them, or they do something to fall from someone's eyes in, manner of speak. And you watch that in your kid eyes, that sticks with you more than other experiences in your life. And you grow up, it's almost like a muscle. You build thinking, I don't ever want to have someone lose their trust in me or want to lose my trust in someone else. So your lens through life becomes around that security and trust in your approach. So it's just like one way.
It's so cool because I can see how that would impact one's parenting for sure. Because if your mom has this like intel, let's say, then I would imagine you're parenting from a different place.
Absolutely, yes.
You started as an economist. How does that analytical background shape the way you do this work?
I would say at its core, it's helped me see life as a series of patterns. There's interconnectedness. It's not just, as you said in the beginning too, these fragmented pieces of ourselves. We're not different in family than we are at work. Different in the sense that we're not disconnected. The way we show up for ourselves, the way we show up for our partner, our kids, is a reflection of the way we show up in other parts, in friendships, in interviews and whatnot.
Right.
But it's a very holistic way of thinking that comes from economics and this analytical lens of there's parts of us that result in a whole self.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my favorite theories in economics is this idea of opportunity cost. And life is not that black or white. It's not like you do something and you lose something else. But when you combine it with a more soulful perspective on self-understanding, opportunity cost of not knowing ourselves is huge. Opportunity cost of not knowing our kids, their true selves, their needs, and just seeing them as an extension of ourselves, it has an opportunity cost. So it brings that sort of very practical lens to what I do and my perspective on relationships.
It's kind of wild, like because it feels like kind of a creative philosophy, but then it has this like numbers component that doesn't feel like that it naturally goes together. You know?
Yeah, and I think that's why it's been so powerful since I've brought it to the US. And I have clients that are men in finance or women who are, 60 and considering a career pivot. It talks to so many different people because the Born Method is just one way of, I'm essentially saying we don't have to just be incredibly analytical or incredibly quote unquote woo-woo or soulful. There's an in-between, and they can complement each other.
And is it all based on numbers?
Yeah, it's all based on numbers, but birth dates are just one data point.
What are some other data points?
I do a lot of work with founders, so LLC dates of their companies, their incorporation is a big one. Do a lot of co-founder relationship analysis and guidance, and it's their birth dates, but also certain important milestones in their, when they first met, when they first decided on a investment together. And it's a synergy of numbers. So alone we carry certain things, but your zone of genius plus my zone of genius number, we can create something totally different together. So it looks at things as this dynamic.
And then do people select dates based on that, like a wedding date or like my book launch, in order for things to have a better outcome?
Exactly. And that's what I call timing analysis.
Okay.
People have scheduled their C-sections, not less around like, let's define our kid's personality, and more about, for a C-section, it can be, what's a date where the mom will have the highest probability of ease and comfort and less complications. I worked with a couple podcast producers actually, and when they decide to go from unpaid to paid, so we thought about their payment structure. That's another set of numbers. What's a good number? How can they price their episodes or memberships? When they can announce it so that it's aligned with the company's numbers and not just a good date on the calendar. And I always say it's less predictive because my clients are always like, do you have some psychic ability? Like, how do you know all of this? Because things do come into reality, like the way we talk about in our sessions then play out. But it's more about holding a flashlight into the future based on all the life events, historical figures, companies that have existed, closed, and grown, and looking at their numerical pattern through dates. And synthesizing that into applicable
How married to it are you in your own life, your children's birthdays, plan your wedding, like whatever it is, like how much does this live in your space?
Yeah, so this has been a part of me since I was 12, 13 years old. So I meet someone, I immediately think, oh, they must have this and that number, and this is what might be happening in their lives. So you just
dying at someone's birthday, like right out of the gate?
Yes, but I've also learned, like even when I first met my husband, I think it was our third date. I was like, so what's your birthday? And it's less about controlling.
And you're like, no, I need the year too.
Exactly. Yeah. But what year? Or I usually ask questions about like, so were you 17 when you went to UF or 18? Or like just sort of guess it based on important dates of graduation and whatnot.
Sure.
But I've learned to use it as an operating manual. So not for decision making. You know, like I met my husband and he has a set of numbers, set of ways he exists with. So when there's something that goes between us or a decision he makes around career, where we live, it gives me the ease that it's not just personal, it's how he moves through life. So it helps me explain his needs, how he communicates certain things. And it's same with my kids.
Right.
Wildly different. From birth, I knew certain things about them just from their numbers, but they also show it to us. So I just use this numerical language and the way we use behavioral data to explain what I see.
Does it ever work, I don't want to say against you, but negatively in that, because sometimes as a parent, right, if we think our children are a particular way, and then we're sort of like pinning them into that corner, if you will.
Right. Yeah. So I often actually try not to do so many like daily numbers thinking in my life because of that, because it's hard to look at it from the outside. But I use it kind of this overall map for my kids. So I know my first kid, my 4-year-old son, is heavy on water numbers. He's incredibly introspective. In order to recharge, he needs his alone time. But I'm not using it to, if he's in the corner feeling sad, I'm not using it as, oh, he's just like that. I'm using that knowledge as, okay, like, Shep, let's talk about how you're feeling. It's okay right now if you want to sit there, let me know when you're ready, kind of language, instead of pushing him in that corner. It's giving me tools to go about every day, little micro decisions we make as parents.
Is the Born method more popular in Turkey because that's where it was born as a
Yes. Yeah. So my mom has a medical background. She owned a clinic, and unintentionally this grew so much. Politicians were advising her. She was working with companies, Department of Defense on their HR decisions. Like, this was just growing as this practical way of understanding people and teams, that she quit that job, wrote a book about it, and continues to work. But my mission is to modernize it, grow the data set, and translate it.
In what way? So what is different about the way she approached it and the way you're approaching it?
Yeah, I mean, I call her like a purist. Like, the way even I explain the Born method, I said numerology on steroids. She's like, no, this is a mathematical pattern in life. And she's very, like, she doesn't want this to be understood as this like metaphysical woo-woo thing. She's very academic about it. And for me, it's about, again, mixing the woo and the data.
Well, also, if the goal, I would imagine, is to help impact as many people as possible, I think that our generation probably knows a little spin on it. Takes it a little bit further, maybe.
Exactly. And when she started it, there's less of this like surge into wellness and this extreme of let's only think manifestation, let's only think these abstract like planetary terms about our, the year of the horse, the year of the snake. There's less of that when she started 25 years ago.
Yes.
But now I feel that it's necessary to almost represent this new wave almost in wellness, where let's not pick one extreme or the other. Like, there is realities in life. We can each have a more practical, usable knowledge to daily lives instead of think of it as, manifestation and creation of huge things. We can follow certain time patterns when we're manifesting.
It kind of goes along, like my personal philosophy, having 3 kids.
Yeah.
I always say, like, you are who you are. I mean, you're born who you are, you know? I mean, I am parenting them relatively similar. I try to anyway.
Yeah.
And they couldn't be more different, right?
Yes.
So I do like this concept that you can sort of have these like ideas around who the kid is, how they're born, right? And like who they show up as, and that it's somehow explained a little bit in a way that gives you, I think, a little confidence in your parenting.
Right.
Tools.
Yeah.
What about, you mentioned the year of the horse and the year of the snake. That's like a big thing right now, because I think it's like switching tomorrow maybe, or today. I'm like waiting for that shedding shit to cut out.
Yes.
Do you subscribe to that? And how does that relate to the Born method?
Yeah. So my approach is it's yes and. Like we can't, yes, we're all entering this, again, this energy, this force, and scientific more than anything. There's going to be a different energy, whether it's starting today or it was a month ago. Like every practice has its own description of it. But we can't possibly all go through it the same way.
Right.
Let's also say like, okay, it's the year of the horse for you, but where's your horse going? Is it running or walking? Should it rest a little bit along the way, or should it be focused? And everyone should think of it through their own lens instead of compare it to other people's horses or way of going through the year.
But you do believe that we are in the year of the horse, and what does that mean?
Right. So I do believe, less of the imagery, but I know that, 2026 in the Born method is a 1 year. And numerology will say the same, but we have different sort of data points to explain what that means. And one is, when you look at Egyptian math, when you look at Kabbalah, it's representing renewal, beginnings. But you might be going through 516, maybe you're in a 5-year. I might be going through a 7-year, and you add 1 to it. So
how does that work? So if it's 2026, how would I be in a 5-year?
So for you, and we have like a separate set of calculations to see your year's numbers.
Got it. Okay.
And that's what I appreciate about it. We can all still refer to the overall energy of the year. It's open to, I call it like probability math, open to beginnings. But for you, it might be a new beginning for your new investments financially versus for someone else. Maybe it's in the relationship aspect.
Got it. Okay.
So I think it's important to understand our own journey more specifically, because otherwise every year there's a new symbol, a new zodiac sign. And then we, at the end of it, feel bad looking back thinking, well, it wasn't a beginning for me.
Well, and I feel like everybody is like hanging on for this year of the horse. It's like, it could be a little anticlimactic.
Right.
What's the most common pattern you see when women come to you feeling successful on paper, but misaligned in real life?
Yeah. A lot of my clients are, I have some mid to late 20s, some 55 to 65, but a majority of them are in this 40 to, late 30s to mid 40s range.
Sure.
And what I see again and again, regardless of how successful they are in their career, in their family, relationships, all parts of life, they focus on what they're capable of doing versus what they're wired to do. And they measure success based on that. And women are capable of doing everything.
Right.
I have clients who have built multi-million-dollar companies, but in our conversations, they're thinking about, but I have all these investment properties. What do I do with them? We should sell them. We should keep them. Or I don't know if I should be in New York, or if I should. There's always a big question, but they're looking at through the lens of what am I capable of doing more versus looking within and thinking, okay, what makes me the most happy?
Right.
Is it am I happiest when I experience a certain decision before arriving at that decision? So in this example of like properties, I just had this client, just like, I don't know what to do with the houses we have, and it's a burden to our family. It's like, have you guys as a family tried going up there, to your house in Europe? And that's going to give you the idea. You're someone who has to experience, feel, see to make a decision.
Right.
But it's just a small way it's a small example to share. A lot of the times it's women doing these things because they feel like they can and they should.
They should, very often, I think.
Instead of thinking, is this the right thing for me right now?
I also think just some of it's just wisdom that you learn over time, you know? I think a lot of us, male and female, get into roles or careers. And, you know, later, I'm 51, I'm starting to think like, I want to be waking up every day doing things that I'm inspired to do, you know? And I think that takes time, for people to get to. Your work focuses a lot on timing. How does understanding when to act change decision making?
Timing is everything, and it's less about knowing exactly what to do when, and it's more about almost reading our intuition, because we all feel certain things when we enter a new year, when we enter a new relationship. Those are all beginnings. They're all related to a new set of time. We push down what we feel.
Right.
Actually, what we were just talking about, misaligned women that are successful, there's several 9-year cycles in the Board method, and misalignment or questioning it, we see happen most in what we call the 5th cycle. And it's 9 years during ages 35 to 44, 45, is this 9-year cycle defined by the number 5. And it's when everyone feels this sense of they need to prove their independence, freedom, their mark in the world. You know, that's when we try to grow our families, grow our houses, our careers. But it's so busy that towards the end of the 5th year cycle, so we see early 40s to mid 40s, again, these are like on average, then women start questioning, looking back, okay, I've been so busy building. Now the question becomes towards the 6th cycle, what does balance look like for me? Is this really what I want to do? And that's when we see, you know, statistically too, divorce rates going up, big career pivots happening.
And it's interesting that stuff lines up also with hormones.
Exactly.
And like how, what's happening in your body, which is a wild ride by itself.
Yeah, we include all of that too. So that's the like data science part. It's not separate from physiologically what we're going through.
Right. I'd like to actually do mine, the Board method, and then maybe post it after this.
Sure,
just to like,
we can do it,
see what that looks like. How has using this system personally changed the way you move through life as a woman and a mom?
Yeah,
I guess it's almost like for you, it's like oxygen.
It comes so naturally.
Like I wrote that question before I spoke to you, and it feels like it literally is who you are.
It is who I am. But also, you know, I started the Board method. I spent 15 years in venture philanthropy. I was doing a very different career before this. I worked with family foundations, investing their funds into nonprofits. I worked with nonprofits, helping them grow their impact. A lot of work through data, but completely unrelated to this.
Right.
But it didn't feel, even though I know this system, doing all of that didn't feel aligned to me. So when I had my second son, I went through this period of, okay, so I can now move on to the next bigger position, or do I really, as a mom, have the luxury of wasting my time in a career that doesn't feel aligned? And when I think I was 4 months postpartum when I started taking clients, rationally, that's not when you start a business. But I knew from my timing that 2024, 25 was a great time for me to start a business.
Okay.
So I didn't feel torn between my newborn and the business. I was able to, it was a very ambitious year for me. And if I had just stayed home, I would have felt almost
like stagnant
stagnant. So I didn't fight the energy. I was instead
It gives you so
timing.
much more. Well, I guess it saves you from being indecisive, it feels like.
Yeah.
And not calculated, but just like firm in your decisions, which
Right.
sounds great and peaceful, because the rest of us are out here like confused and questioning, you know?
Yeah. No, I mean, I have those moments too, because
Sure.
again, we're all human, but it does give me less. Because without it, my structure, my personality would have taken everything personally, would have overthought to the level of being stagnant. And it gives me the ability to be more proactive. And that's what I want to do for people too.
Right. So what would you say as a last takeaway? What is your hope? Like, what is your true aligned hope for the Born Method as it relates to everybody?
I want it to be a tool for people. And even if they just listen and hear about the Born Method, even if they don't do like a full-on session and participate in the system, that we are our best when we compare ourselves to ourselves and our best selves, not to other people's journeys, other people's timing and what they do or how they communicate, because we're each very complex human beings, and we have our own strengths and needs and expectations. So I've seen the best work happen in my clients, in their companies, in myself, when we turn inwards and think, okay, how am I going to do this in the best way possible? And that's my hope. That's my hope with people who do family sessions with me, company sessions, or look at all parts of life through the lens of numbers. I want them to take this as almost like a user manual they can refer to for life. Right. Not just now.
Which it really combats the comparison culture. So that's amazing.
Yes.
Right? Just, well, I love it. I'm super excited to learn more. If somebody hears this and they're interested, how do they find out more about you, more about the Born Method, and how can they reach you?
Yeah, so my website is thebornmethod.com. I offer, it's all virtual so that you can have a recording of the sessions. You can have a 60-minute session or a few sessions looking at your entire life, but I do one-on-ones. I also do a lot of workshops across the country, and I focus on one of the numbers and share with you the wisdom behind each of those. And I would say those are some ways to follow me. And then I just started a Substack, Math of Being, sharing stories of how numbers show up in everyday lives in my clients, myself, and around us.
I love that. And I'm going to ask you after, hopefully we can do an Instagram live with all of my numbers.
Yeah.
So if you're following Cake for Dinner, look out for that. Follow us on all of everything, Apple and Spotify and YouTube. And thank you so much, Ipek. This was wonderful, enlightening, and I look forward to working with you.
Me too. Thank you, Keisha.